Oh,
I just did not like this movie at all. Like,
oh my god!
it just made me cringe. And I like gangster movies. Like, I mean, you name it.
Well, okay, so back up a little bit.
We're rolling into another episode of Triple Side Podcast. Darrell Roberts and
Jesse Hernandez.
All right, so today we will be talking about 2020. Interesting, crazy year. Not all that eventful for 2020 movies, but we are going to go over our best movies, worst movies, movies that we had the highest anticipation for that let us down, and movies that we weren't anticipating that let us up. I guess you would say. What would you call that?
What did we call it? We created a list on our phones. Best movies, worst movies, movies that let us down, movies that surprised you.
Movies that surprised you, yeah.
Yeah, and then we did streaming top picks, so movies that were out on streaming. And then we're also going to be covering The Mandalorian.
Yes.
And WandaVision tonight.
Yeah, we're recording it right before it starts, so we might actually do a little bonus footage. Just released initial thoughts of that. So watch out for that after this episode.
Cool. Take the top pick for best movie of 2020.
So I kind of already heard what his worst movie is actually my best movie. So best movie for me of 2020 was Tenet. So I love Christopher Nolan as a director. I think every movie he makes, he has an infatuation with time. But every movie that he makes, I feel like its rewatchability is so phenomenal, and you pick up something new every single time you watch it. I've only watched it twice, but I watched it from a whole crazy different perspective the second time around. And speaking of that, that's probably another thing that we're going to start moving forward in our next podcast is rewatchability films. So we'll probably call it like upon second watch or second watch, something like that. But
we're working on it.
Yeah, but Tenet for me was just a phenomenal movie. Yeah, it's just the red and the blue with the reversing time and all that. It's very like well thought out movie, and the rewatchability, like I said, is pretty phenomenal. I can't wait to watch it again.
How many times have you watched it since
I've only watched it twice.
Okay.
Yeah. And I watched some breakdowns of different theories of how other people think, like heavy spoilers. That guy's YouTube channels is actually really good. So check that one out as well. But yeah, that's my best movie of 2020.
Yeah, and I'll go a little bit on my thoughts on.
No, just save it because I already know it's coming up later.
Okay. So I have a totally different I guess.
No, what's your best movie?
Oh, that's what I'm saying. I got a whole different movie than like, I guess, blockbuster type movie that came out last year. And mainly because we didn't have good movies that came out. We didn't have a lot of movies last year. I wouldn't say we didn't have good movies. We did have good movies, but again, that's why they're on this list. But for me, the best movie, my best top pick was The Hunt.
I didn't see it.
You haven't seen it.
Tell me about it.
I told you to watch. First of all, I told him to watch it. He didn't watch it. I told one of our friends, Matt, to watch it. He watched it. He really liked it.
Just didn't get around to it.
Yeah, and the reason why I put it on my top pick was mainly because, one, it had action. I like action. Two, it had like comedy, like chops here and there that were somewhat satire, but it was like the good enough satire, which now I think if I tell you that it was political satire, you might want to watch it. Because this movie just, I mean, they poked at both sides. One got picked a little bit more, but I mean, I'll let that for you guys to watch it if you guys haven't watched it. It's pretty gory and pretty dark humor. So I think at the end of the day, for me, like, I remember when we talked about making this list, I was like, dude, I have to put that movie on the top. And then when I was going through like the movies that came out last year, I was like, oh yeah. I mean, out of most of the movies that I remember coming out last year, I was like, this is the one, you know. So that's for me, like that was the movie of 2020 that I would say was the best flick.
All right, worst movie. For me, the worst movie that I saw last year. Granted, I love Shia LaBeouf as an actor, but man, this was a huge letdown. Tax Collector.
Oh,
I just did not like this movie at all. Like,
oh my god,
it just made me cringe. And I like gangster movies. Like, I mean, you name it.
Well, okay, so back up a little bit. Let me to let you guys know. I told them, I'm like, hey, we should do a movie. We should do a podcast or a little video on Tax Collector because Shia LaBeouf's in it, right? And for me, I'm like, I really like him as an actor. He commits. This guy got a full blown like chest tattoo / stomach tattoo, and I don't know what other tattoos he got for the movie. And it's not like a movie that like you would think you're like, man, like this was like huge release all over like different countries. I don't know if it did even get released in different countries, but yeah, I'm in agreement with. I was like,
well, we were supposed to talk about it on our last podcast, but it was so terrible that we switched to Peanut Butter Falcon. So if you haven't seen that, link down in the description below to that podcast. But that's why we talked about Peanut Butter Falcon, because Tax Collector was terrible.
Yeah, I mean, that
highly recommend you don't see that one.
Yeah, I mean, it had Shia LaBeouf, it had George Lopez. It
had a lot of promise. Like, there was some good storyline in there, kind of. But it just, they botched it.
Yup, they definitely did. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that they could have done a lot better. So, anything else you want to say about Tax? No? All right.
Don't want to talk about it ever again.
Cool. So, I'll be kind of brief because I for worst movies, I picked two of them.
Okay.
So, the first one I'm going to name, I think you'll be in agreement with this as well.
Before you name the second one, the first movie on our list for our next podcast is going to be under rewatchabilities or upon second watch or second watch, whatever it is. Second watch is going to definitely be Tenet, because I'm telling you, it's going to make a difference. But go ahead.
So that's not on my worst watch. I told you that he didn't get the list right. So the first one is New Mutants as worst movie.
Okay, I didn't see it.
So
I didn't want to see it.
We talked about it. We were supposed to go to the theaters when it was like briefly open for a small period of time. And boy, was this movie bad. Like, it had like good intention, but again, X-Men hasn't like really come out with anything. They should just, again, let Disney handle it from here on for Marvel. Same thing with like Fantastic Four. Anything that I think Disney or Marvel isn't touching, let them touch it. Like,
Marvel proper is going to do a great job with those properties.
Exactly. Like, again, like, the movie was all over the place in some places. Like, it was like, what am I watching? Am I watching something like that's going to introduce me to X-Men? And as a person, say you're not into the superhero universe, this is gonna be like, wait, what? Is this part of X-Men or it's not part? So that was for me. Like, that was like, it took me out right away. The characters were meh, you know, and I just didn't enjoy it.
Well, I have a question for you. Since you saw it and I didn't, my impressions of the movie were it was supposed to be very different from any other quote unquote superhero movie. And they tried to incorporate the horror genre. Did they do any of that, or was that even in there at all?
I didn't even know
and
that.
Did they do it good?
I didn't even know that it was supposed to be horror.
Okay, so that answers my question.
There was some stuff that I was like,
horror elements.
Yeah, but I mean, it wasn't like, monsters. Okay, cool. That doesn't count. And then, does it answer your question?
Yeah.
The second one I want to get into, that's on here for worst movies that I put, is Wonder Woman. So that, I don't know if that comes as a shocker.
1984.
Wonder Woman 1984. So the reason why I put it as worst movie is because they made one of my Pascal, what's his first name?
Pedro Pascal.
They made Pedro Pascal
Dark.
look like he couldn't act. Like, it was like, I'm like, what? Like, you have a good actor, you have someone that has chops, and they straight up gave him like this comic book super villain ish like
mustache
character.
twirling.
Yeah, I'm like, man,
kind of
like,
okay,
so that
depth.
took me out. And then you had like different you had different characters that just were like, I felt like it was a little all over the place. Like, they brought someone back, and I guess that kind of meshed well with the story, but they didn't do such a well connected universe to whatever the first Wonder Woman was. Because I liked the first one.
Oh, I loved it.
And the reason why I'm putting this under the worst movie is because I felt like they went from like a movie that you're like, wow, this has promise, this could save the DC universe, and then they bring this. Right? So for me, that's why I felt like Wonder Woman was such a bomb. Like, it didn't really capture me in. I'm like, oh, I'm probably willing to give this a second look. Maybe when they finish things. I mean, oh man, the freaking the special effects. They felt like they were in high school. Sorry to whoever made this movie, but Wonder Woman running, flying in the air, her hair just flowingly took me out. It took me out, man. So that I put that under worst movie. Cool. So next,
highly anticipated, super excited, and it let me down. Wonder Woman 1984. Wasn't my worst movie, but it's a movie that let me down because it was highly anticipated. Like, loved the first one. I was getting back on the DC train. Because after, what was it, Justice League, and like, it was just so terrible. But Wonder Woman came out, and I was like, okay, I'm back. And Shazam came out. I'm like, okay, I'm back on the DC train. Like, we're turning the corner here. It's getting good. So I was super excited, and have AT&T phone service. So HBO Max is free. So I was like, oh, right after Christmas and everyone's done with the family stuff, come to my house.
I came over.
Yes. And we're throwing we're making it a movie theater event at my house.
Yeah.
And Wonder Woman 1984 is going down. And it went down on my list of movies I didn't like in 2020. I mean, for some of the same reasons. Like, it just had so much potential to be great, and they just botched it with like the mustache twirling villain. Like, had no depth of character in it, and like the transition with Cheetah, like, it just didn't make any sense. And then like the double standard with the rules from the wishing rock, like, you're supposed to only get one wish, yet the Cheetah girl got 2 wishes, and like it was just so many things just about it just were like letdowns. I didn't mind the CGI that much. It didn't take me out of the movie, but
so Wonder Woman flying in the air and her hair flowing like it's graceful, even though she's going like top speed, didn't take you out?
Nah, it didn't really bother me. I just
her running in slow motion when technically she's going like 80-90 miles per hour didn't take you out?
Like, I can forgive stuff, but it's more like the storyline and like plot and like character development. That stuff pisses me off when you get that wrong. And it's just I can't forgive that stuff. Like, that stuff for me is more important than here and there some CGI stuff that's a little bit terrible. I mean, I've seen it done a lot worse. So for me, it was kind of like it wasn't too bad for me. Yeah. But all the other stuff, just I couldn't get with it. So what about for you?
For me, I had movies that let me down was Tenet, right? And let me explain why, right? I love Christopher Nolan movies. I mean, the first one, and the first one obviously that comes to my mind, Inception. I've watched that so many freaking times. I have it on DVD, like Blu-ray, like. I'm like, I want to watch this. Dark Knight, I'm like, I want to watch this. Interstellar, I've watched it so many times. Tenet, I have to watch it just to understand it, you know. And then again, I get it. Once you understand it, you're like, oh, cool, I can pick things here and there. But I remember the day that Matt and I walked out of the movie theaters and we're like, did you like it? Like, did you get it? Like, we were so confused at the part that I was like, what did we just watch? Right? It was a beautiful. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful movie. It's well put together. It's a Christopher Nolan movie. That's not the bad part. The bad part was the story. Like, you had to pay attention 110%. This might be like the future of movies where you're like timelines are here and there, and as far as like something that you have to be paying attention to like 100% of the time, where you can't even blink because you missed this specific thing happening in the background that actually is supposed to make sense later on. I'm like, that it low-key disappointed me, because I felt like Interstellar or any other Christopher Nolan movie that's been out, you can take a small mental break and not miss the whole movie, or not miss things that are gonna be coming out in later on in the movie that are like, oh, that's what that was, you know. So I felt like for me that's what that's what let me down. And the second one that I really,
before you go to that,
okay, go ahead.
So obviously, as you guys know, Tenet was my best movie of 2020. So I had to go to Vegas just to watch this movie because live in California, theaters are shut down, restaurants are shut down, everything's shut down, locked in your home. Anyways, so I went to see it with my wife, and she loved the movie as well. And I don't know. I mean, for me, I just was able to just focus in. Haven't been to the theater in freaking 6 months, 8 months, whatever it was. And I was just hyped and super excited, and I wasn't let down. And for me, I just was able to focus and pick things up and follow it. And yeah,
can we mention Robert Pattinson? Like, how great of a job he did in that movie.
Oh, phenomenal. Absolutely. Every actor did a phenomenal job.
Every actor in the movie. But like, for me, I think I'm still stuck. And then I've kind of gotten out because Robert Pattinson
like even the antagonist.
Movies. Yeah, Robert Pattinson made different movies. But I'm like, I still think Robert Pattinson, Twilight. Right? So,
I mean, most people do because they haven't seen the good movies that he's made outside of that. I haven't seen Lighthouse, but I've heard great things about it.
Yeah.
But there's a ton of other movies that he's been in that have been really good.
Good Time.
Yeah.
Good Time is a Good Time. It's called Good Time.
Oh yeah, he was in Harry Potter.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he was in Harry Potter.
I always forget about that.
So yeah, that's pretty much what I think on that.
Your second one?
The second one that definitely let me down. In this, I didn't have the highest hopes as much as I did for Tenet, but it was like such a cool concept that I was like, and it had like one of the YouTubers that I watch, like, he hasn't posted much, but it was Project Power that let me down. The Jamie Foxx movie.
My wife saw it. I believe she saw it.
So
I didn't.
The reason why I thought it was really again
just looked like a rip off of X-Men.
It let me down. It was better than the Mutants. So
well, I mean, yeah.
But... I mean, so the reason why it let me down, personally, I think it was mainly because the concept of the movie is that there's a pill that gives you superpowers for a certain period of time. That's hella cool. I'm like, I'm in, you know? And then there's just like so many little things that, I mean, they could have done a little bit different that I feel like could have made the movie a lot better. Jamie Foxx sells me on movies. I think he's a great actor. I mean,
Baby Driver.
Yeah, but I think like there were certain parts where I'm like, I'm just watching the Jamie Foxx that I know, right? And then sometimes that's a problem with sometimes with some actors that I think that it's really hard to disconnect the actor from the movie or from what he plays. But it's not as bad as The Rock, but we can get into that a different day. But yeah, Project Power came out on Netflix, I think it was.
Netflix movie.
And at first I was like, oh, cool, this looks cool. This is going to be on Netflix. Cool, perfect. I watched it and I was like, that kind of sucked. So, yeah, that movie definitely let me down. And the next thing is movies that surprised you.
So for me, going back to Netflix releases, I'm like, Netflix, it's like VOD type so far for me. Like, I haven't really found anything like all that great. But this movie surprised me. Extraction. I really liked that movie. Like, it was well put together. Like, character development, action was phenomenal. Like, it looked like a high budget.
Wait, that movie came out?
Yeah. You haven't seen it?
I haven't seen it.
All right.
Oh,
you'll have to watch it.
Was there a lot of like? And that's the problem. I feel like
that's the problem with
2020.
Netflix.
No, but that's the problem with 2020.
Netflix, because there's no way to promote. There's no way for them to like promote. They don't do ads. I haven't seen any ads.
But I feel like most of them would go on press tours, which they have.
But they couldn't because of 2020.
That's what I'm saying. But
I don't even think Netflix does press tours for like their movies that come out on Netflix. I could be wrong. Yeah,
I didn't know this movie was out, and I thought I looked at a list at.
But no, it's a good movie, so you'll have to check it out. It'll surprise you.
Cool.
Yeah,
I'm down with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
no spoilers.
No spoilers. So for movies that surprise me, should I go with the banger first, or should I go with
do that last?
Okay, so the first one that surprised me was Life in a Year. I told you about this.
You did.
So this is the reason why it surprised me. It has Jaden Smith, right? So right away, I'm like, and again, I went into this movie.
Oh, now I know what movie you're talking about. Yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah.
I went into this movie not expecting a thing.
I watched the trailer and I was like, dude, this looks like trash.
Yeah, so I went into this movie not expecting a thing because I was like, it's Jaden Smith, right? I was like, I'm not tired, I'm not sleepy. Let's watch a movie, you know. And I think this one came out on Hulu, and my brother has Hulu, so I get hooked up. And so I put this movie on. Oh no, it was on Amazon. Yeah, it was on Amazon
Prime.
And I wasn't expecting the level of commitment that Jaden Smith was gonna put into this movie. That I was like, oh shit, like this is actually good. You know, it's a sad movie. You know, so. I feel like when there's sadness involved, you have to act a little bit more, and that's what Jaden Smith brought in. His co-star was Cara Delevingne, model, has like thick eyebrows. Anyways,
if I saw her,
we'll put her on the video. You're probably looking at her face right now, but yeah, did really good. I was like, again, I don't know if it was the fact that you're like we weren't getting much. Saw this like November, so I haven't watched it again. But I'm like, hopefully it's not one of those things where like I'm hungry and anything tastes delicious right now. But I really enjoyed it. The other one that really surprised me was Invisible Man. Now, did you watch it?
I haven't seen it.
Okay, so I
heard good things about it, but
without spoiling anything, Invisible Man was a movie that was...
Have you seen the original?
No.
Okay.
But I heard about the original, and I went there expecting the worst movie. Not the worst movies, but a stupid... What was the other movie? There was like a... They were trying to bring back that, the horror, like Dracula, Swamp Man. There was like a universe.
Oh, Mummy,
and like all this stuff. So I think
that was the Mummy.
Yeah, Invisible Man.
Tom Cruise.
Yeah, Invisible Man was part of that universe, right? I thought it was. Or
no.
So that's what I was.
That's different.
So maybe that's why it surprised me, because I was relating that movie to that universe.
To the Mummy universe.
And then they
canceled that universe. Because the Mummy did so terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't care for it either.
Didn't get that memo.
2020 was rough. But yeah, the movie surprised me just mainly because it had a concept of something that I was like, oh, that's new, that's interesting. I like their spin. So they're spinning on the Invisible Man, and I've never seen the original, but the spin that they put it in to have it fit on this timeline this year made sense. And I was like, oh wow, like that's it's something I would definitely recommend, and I would watch it again actually. But yeah, that's something that surprised me, that came out of nowhere. And what do you have for streaming top picks?
I guess I'll just go with the one that was my number one thing that was new to streaming for 2020 for me, was Queen's Gambit.
Oh, we could have done shows?
I mean, it's streaming.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up playing chess, so I understand the game. I'm not like a pro or anything like that, but I mean, growing up with my cousin, actually, at one point we lived in the same house with our grandparents, and literally we'd play like soon as we got home from school, until it was time to go to bed, and then we'd wake up like an hour early before school to continue the game that we started the previous night. Yeah, we were deep. And then we were like reading chess books, and like, so I love chess. I haven't played in like 2-3 years maybe. Definitely want to get a chessboard and start playing again. But I like the fact that they actually put real chess in this. Like, they did their homework, they did their research, because a lot of movies and TV shows and things, when it comes to a topic or a sport or whatever, they don't really put that much effort into actually putting like the thought process, the hard work, the mythology, what's the right word I'm looking for, the mindset behind the sport or the game or whatever the case may be, into the backbone of what it should be. But the character development in this is phenomenal. The plot, the through line, like everything about it, it was just done so smooth and phenomenally.
I mean, the timeline that they were, that they had across the movie, that it like their outfits were on point.
Yeah,
and things like
costuming was on point.
As a non-chess player, I was intrigued right away. I was like, oh, this is cool.
And that's the other thing that drew my wife into it, who's not into chess at all. And she got drawn into it. And at first she didn't want to watch it because she's like, "Oh, chess, nah, I don't want to watch it." But I was like, "Oh, come on, like, just give it a chance. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm hearing great things about it. Let's watch it together."
Yeah, like I feel like if you think you're like, oh, want to watch a show about chess, you're like, nah, I'm gonna pass. I'm gonna pass. But I where did I hear it? Did I tell you about it, or where did I? I thought I heard about it, and then I told
I'm not
you?
sure if you did or if I told you about it.
I don't know.
Either way.
Either way, but the movie, the show was great. I really enjoyed it as well. For me, the streaming picks, I picked two movies. I picked the first one that I picked was Soul, that recently came out like December. A Disney movie that came out anime. Is it Pixar or is it Disney? Disney?
I'm not 100% sure.
Disney, because they own it.
Either way.
Okay, they own it.
Yeah.
Either way, yeah, it's a Pixar. It's a Pixar movie. And I mean the spin that they put into like life after death, and also life before life, was cool. I was like, oh, this is interesting. I like their spin, and yeah, I mean they had one like different types of characters, so you're not like just seeing the normal. Where am I going with that? Yeah, I just thought like they put a different spin on like just life and death itself, and I was like, I think that was pretty amazing to watch what some creative person at Disney thinks, and I was like, okay, that makes sense. I can live with that. But the other one that I thought was really good as far as like a streaming topic was Alive. #Alive is a movie about what would a zombie apocalypse look like in the current our current year that we live in, from a point of view of a Korean gamer / tech guy, which I was like, oh, okay, I can watch this, you know. And it's I watched it first in Korean, and then I watched it again in English. That was on Netflix, and like I feel like they had like different. The story it was well written, and Korean movies for some reason have been picking it up. It started with Parasite, and I think that's how I got me and my mom. We got into Korean movies, where she's fully Mexican and barely understands English. So I'm like, she likes it, I'm cool with that. But yeah, I felt like #Alive was like a movie that I've even recently recommended to my brother, that is in the Navy, that he's like, oh, I don't know what to watch. I'm like, to watch this movie. So I like zombies. I've always liked thinking like, what if that's weird, but yeah, I would watch it. I mean, it's not gory, I think.
So I think, did you have another one?
No.
So I think this is unofficially not on your, or is on your list that you didn't put, but the best streaming of 2020 obviously is The Mandalorian.
Oh no, that was going to be a whole separate topic.
Okay, well, let's roll into The Mandalorian.
Yeah, so we talked about this because we said, let's put Mandalorian on its own platform, because let's start with me from the beginning. For me, I mean, you know this, I've been a Star Wars, no, I wouldn't say I was a Star Wars fan. I thought Star Wars was cool, ? Kinda. But I never really got into it, right? It was mainly like, cool. I saw like episode, like the newer ones. I thought they were alright. I didn't really like the old ones because of the CGI, and then there's a bunch of other stuff. And I was like, I'm not gonna get into this movie. And then I saw the Rey series, and I was like, ooh, this is kind of rough. And then there was a little glimpse of hope with Rogue One. I was like, oh, this is interesting. And maybe it was because it wasn't about the Skywalker series, that I'm like, it's the universe. This is supposed to be in space, and you're only focusing on one family. You know, how much character development do you need? But I saw Mandalorian, right? And from the beginning of the show, the opening scene, I was like, okay, I want to see this.
Yep.
You know, and I mean, it's been a whole different ride as far as the show, and then the later season. So the most recent season that came out, it has a whole background universe that is already existing from the shows, the animated series, the shows, and
Rebels and Clone Wars,
and some of the movies references, which then made me want to go back and look at those shows and watch the movies again. That I was like, oh, okay, I can appreciate this a little bit more, you know. And then I also was mad to the Rey saga, you know, episode 7, 8, or whatever that came out. That I was like,
trash.
Oh, they screwed Luke.
There's a lot of redeeming qualities about The Force Awakens for me. I still like that movie.
Well, you like it because it was new, and then it was,
and we hadn't had Star Wars in a long time.
Exactly. So you were hungry.
And I got those feels from it, but it has rewatchability. I still like The Force Awakens.
But
The Last Jedi and the Skywalker, like,
I mean, even the
trash
main lightsaber fight that Rey had with Kylo, I'm like, man, I seen some guys in their backyards that have way better lightsaber fights than that one. But
LARPing.
Yeah, I'm just talking about, like, the Mandalorian really put an interest and an asterisk on Star Wars, and I feel like what they're doing over at Disney, is what's it called? Really good.
Specifically Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau.
Yeah, like, I was about to say
they're the saviors of the Star Wars universe.
Specifically, Dave Filoni, who
and Jon Favreau. Moving forward, Disney, Kathleen Kennedy, whatever. Step aside. Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni need to take over the Star Wars universe and just be head over it like Kevin Feige was over the MCU.
Yeah, I was about to actually say that Kevin Feige, what he did for the MCU, and what Dave Filoni had and Jon Favreau, which technically Jon Favreau also played a big, huge, not a big.
He started it.
He started the MCU with Iron Man. So jinx. Yeah, like, I feel like what these guys, you put someone that is a nerd and someone that loves this universe in charge of it, and somehow the sex, what was it called?
Not just loves it, but they respect it.
Yeah, I mean that's what I learned a lot about Dave Filoni. He respects Star Wars. Right, he thought a lot about what was the other. I forgot this. The guy, the first director, Empire Strikes Back director.
Oh, George Lucas.
Dave Filoni respected the ish out of George Lucas.
Yeah, the sugar honey iced tea out of George Lucas.
Yeah, so like, you have someone at that level that's willing to put in the work, that executives are willing to listen to, invest in their people. I'm like, that's what brings the good universe, right? And I think that's what maybe and
they put in the deep, rich lore of Star Wars into the Mandalorian. There's heart to it. Like, it's just the pounding heartbeat of what Star Wars is like in every episode, except
for the frog lady.
Yeah, you had a problem with that, but
one little thing, it brushed through every episode for me was just straight juice, like straight steak, and like you get the meat and potatoes out of it. You know, I feel like they can't waste any second, and like I feel like for me, going into something that I didn't really like in the past, I'm like, that's something I want to watch. Also something I want to know more about, and I think that's what.
And have you caught any episodes of Rebels? Because they introduced Ahsoka Tano.
Yeah.
And the Clone Wars, and the implications of them name dropping Grand Admiral Thrawn from Rebels. Ezra's still out there with Grand Admiral Thrawn, so Ezra Bridger is a good chance that somehow could come up in the third season of The Mandalorian.
Yeah, like I don't think
which is really cool.
I mean, I don't think for me, like any of the Star Wars movies spin-offs were anything that I was like, I need to watch this. You know, like Solo, literally the only reason I watched it was for Daniel Glover. Right? Like Childish Gambino, I was like, I have to watch this just because of him. Did I like it? No. But now with like what Mandalorian has done and like bring these Rebels characters into this, I'm like, I'm down. Give me a spinoff. I'm willing to watch this.
Boba Fett and doing it right.
Yeah, like and there's so much potential right now.
And then obviously,
what?
The grand finale. Luke Skywalker. They finally redeemed him.
Yeah,
and did him right.
Kinda.
No, and man.
The only thing I want to pick was the CGI. The CGI.
Forgiven. You gave me the action of Luke Skywalker, what he's capable of in his prime. And
100%.
Every Star Wars fan has been wanting this for 30 years.
I mean, yeah, I think watching Luke fight in that show was like, oh, okay, that's why I want to go back and watch these movies. How bad was he? How much of a badass was he in those movies? So that's the reason why I went
what's
back.
his story arc to be able to get to that level?
Yeah.
Like his trials and tribulations that he had to go through to become a Jedi.
Yeah. So
and become a master Jedi.
Again, the small little nitpick, it won't stop me from wanting to know more. Watching it was
and
just
loving
the CGI.
It.
Was the CGI. That was the only thing. I'm like,
forgiven.
I wouldn't have cared if they used an actor that didn't look exactly like him. I wouldn't have cared. The CGI just for me, I'm always about the CGI. If it takes me out of the movie, like for me, that's the one thing I pay attention to.
It's an uncanny valley doing CGI of a face, like because certain movements of the face, like when you do a full CGI character, it's like watching a video game. But it just doesn't.
The other thing is that
there's something uncanny about looking at a CGI character versus looking at a human being and the facial expressions. They don't have it where they can pull that facial expression, and that's why it takes you out.
Which brings me to a question about that, which, again, we love Mandalorian. Why didn't they de-age Mark Hamill? They de-aged people in, like, in MCU already. Tony Stark, the Ant-Man, Hank Pym, and they did it great. I was sold in that.
Remember that this is a TV show.
Yeah.
And they don't have the movie budget to de-age. So they're working on a shoestring budget to put this together.
But it's
8
Disney.
episodes.
It's Disney.
Yeah, but at the same time, they're still on a budget.
I mean...
And you can only do so much with that.
If the executives knew that this show was the reason, I'm sure I'm not the only one. This show is the reason why they're going back and rewatching movies and keeping Disney Plus alive. I'm sure they could afford to put a little bit more
and
money.
How much traffic The Mandalorian has brought them.
Yeah.
But they didn't expect it to do gangbusters like it's doing, because when the first season of The Mandalorian dropped, they didn't even have merch for Baby Yoda.
Oh, yeah.
Which was a huge fail because everyone wanted merch from Baby Yoda. So this wasn't thought up about how significant and how gangbusters Grogu was going to be. Still call him Baby Yoda.
Baby Yoda.
Whatever. Grogu. Was going to be, and how popular The Mandalorian was going to be, because they didn't even have merch available.
Yeah.
So that was a fail on Disney's part to recognize how special The Mandalorian was going to be for Star Wars fans.
Yeah, and then I don't know if this was because of Kevin Feige or what exactly happened, but I feel like I watched the behind the scenes of The Mandalorian, and Kevin Feige, was it Kevin Feige or no?
Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau.
Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau work really hard to get new technology into the show. So they have this thing called the volume, which is pretty much. Remember
they use gaming technology to map this huge LED screen that's like 270 degrees, and then it has a roof of LEDs screens, and then the cameras in there are mapping the room, this volume,
in real time.
Like you would map a virtual reality space for a video game.
Yeah.
So they're able to do things that you can't normally do, and shoot things that you can't normally shoot unless you're on site. So they literally, probably 90 or 85% of The Mandalorian is shoot in this volume and not shot on location.
Which also says a lot about VR, but that's a whole different topic. But I think a lot of their budget, and again, I'm not mad about it, about the whole Luke Skywalker thing. It took me out a little bit. But I think a lot of their money was going into investment into that new technology. 100%. A lot of the stuff. I mean, Baby Yoda is a whole like mechanical puppet. Like I'm sure all these things aren't cheap. And I feel like, but those things are probably invested already. In which the next season they might have a better not better actor. They might have an actor playing Luke Skywalker. They might have better CGI. They might have more of a budget to play with Luke, right? And I just love the show. Give us more.
Yes, please. More
Dave
Filoni, more Jon Favreau.
Yup.
In charge.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's it for the stream.
Triple Side Podcast.
Thank you. Stream video.
Thank you for watching. We really appreciate you watching, taking the time. You could be doing anything else out of your day, but you took the time to watch our podcast. Thank you so much. Please hit the like button. Please comment below any movies that you'd like us to review.
Let us know if you agree or disagree with our picks.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more.
And also let us know what were some of your best movies, worst movies, ones that let you down, ones that you were surprised at. Let us know in the comments below.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm a lot more controversial with my picks usually.
And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already.
Yeah. We're going to be posting a lot more. We have different
more consistently.
We have more. We have a lot of ideas that we want to go ahead and implement. And
we're gonna have a special guest and interview style podcast as well.
Yup. So look out for all of that. You guys have a good day.